crisscrossed by an amazing network of ancient trackways. These remarkable routes are our oldest roads and have been travelled for more than 5,000 years.
It is an extraordinary place.
Walked by pilgrims and traders, hunters and invaders, Celts, Romans, Saxons and Vikings, each track is bound up in myth, mystery and legend.
This is it. It's quite a strange-looking monument.
But what's the truth behind all these megaliths and burial sites and ley lines and hidden caves along these pathways? And why were their mystic origins such an attraction for later generations? I'm going to explore these tracks to connect the clues they've left hidden in the British landscape.
Now, isn't this just about the best cave you've ever seen? Wow.
Her name is Majesty.
What other name could she have?
This week, I'm in Wiltshire to walk the age-old Ridgeway. I want to know what this historic path across the North Wessex Downs can tell me about the myths and legends of ancient Britain and the rites and rituals of its many travellers.
Ah! These are the paths our ancestors would have followed. The ancient trackways that we can still walk today.
I'm starting my walk in Wiltshire, just off the busy A4. This is the beginning of the Ridgeway, thought to be Britain's oldest road, and along its path lie some of our most spectacular ancient sites. I'm going to explore this elusive highway from the Wiltshire Downs, across the High Chalk Ridge in Oxfordshire and into Berkshire, where I'll rejoin the 21st century on the banks of the River Thames. The Ridgeway will take me to a world-famous stone circle at the heart of a prehistoric landscape. I'll follow in the tracks of Celtic chariots, explore a burial chamber older than the pyramids, and uncover the secrets of a great white horse. All of which will reveal to me how this ancient track was once used. I'm only a mile into my journey on the Ridgeway, and it brings me to my first stop, one of our great prehistoric puzzles, Avebury. Britain's most impressive Neolithic site and the largest stone circle in the world. This magnificent monument was erected by our Stone Age ancestors somewhere between 2000 and 3000 BC, and is so vast it's believed to have taken centuries to complete. 2,500 years later, the Anglo-Saxons get attracted to this place and build a village here. And then if you fast forward to the medieval, you get this arrangement whereby they build a town around and in between the stones, creating this almost fairy tale look. It's absolutely unique, isn't it? But what was this place used for? The experts have been puzzling over its purpose for generations. Thought to be a place of ceremony and burial rites, fertility circles and rituals to appease the earth goddess. But these are just guesses, really, because we know so little about the Neolithic people who built it.
In the Middle Ages and through to the 1500s, local people tried to pull these stones down, which must have been pretty scary. Why would they go to all that time and trouble? Well, the local church thought they were pagan and mystical and dark and weird, not the kind of thing that you would want to surround your town with. And then later on, farmers just smashed them up because they were in the way of their crops. Seems horrible to us now, doesn't it? Like something the Taliban might do.
By the 18th century, the destruction of the stones was getting out of control. Crusading archaeologist William Stukeley's book on Avebury even names and shames the culprit farmers, including, disappointingly, a Mr. T. Robinson. No relation. Even today, the good villagers of Avebury still live with the legacy that some of their homes were built from the crushed megaliths.
Which way are we going?
Just going to the left here, up
Yeah.
down the line. The walls along here.
Well, that looks quite rough-hewn, all that lot, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And these here, oh, certainly, yeah. These look much more uniform, but these earlier ones certainly look like they could have been just guys smashing away at
That's
assassins.
right, absolutely. Well, they learnt that if they heated up the stone
Yeah.
and then put cold water on, they could split the stones.
Yeah.
But later on, they learned how to cut them up more regularly.
Well, I'm not sure about those, but I'm from English heritage, and I'm afraid I'll have to take these rows away with me.
Right? We'll try and find something to replace it.
The ruined stones were also used in this building. Ironically, it's now part of the National Trust Museum dedicated to preserving them. Eventually, in 1934, an unlikely saviour came to Avebury's rescue. Scottish tycoon Alexander Keeler bought the village, stone circle included. Keeler poured his wealth into fast cars, women, and megaliths. Someone who knows Keeler's work very well is the current archaeologist for Avebury, Dr. Nick Snashall.
So you've been mucking around in the presence of this Scottish jam king. Do you find him irritating? I have this image of this real control freak blasting his way through the archaeology and sticking up the stones willy-nilly.
Keeler was an extraordinary man. I mean, he was a multimillionaire. He inherited the marmalade and boiled sweet fortune, but he didn't really care much for those. He wasn't interested in the family factories. What he wanted to do was follow his passions. His excavation records were so good that we knew that if we could excavate as well and get a little bit more information using modern techniques, we could draw in what he'd done before to make something that was more than the sum of its parts.
Oh, it's nice to know that he was a good guy, even if it does confound all my prejudices.
Yeah, he really was.
How the circle appears today is thanks to Keeler's vision. He re-erected a total of 21 stones, adding concrete pillars to mark the missing megaliths.
So is that it? Have we found just about all we can here?
Far from it. I think it's only really at the beginning of the story of understanding what people were doing in these landscapes, where they were living. People often think we know everything there is to know about places like Avebury and the big Wessex monument complexes, but the truth is we've only touched the surface. So what we need to do is get out there and explore more of the story.
I can't help wondering how the huge stones at Avebury got there in the first place. The Ridgeway must have played a crucial part. It's no coincidence that a few miles further along, I discover Fifield Down, the biggest group of sarsen stones in all of England.
They're magnificent, these massive sarsen stones, aren't they? They were originally laid down under ancient seas and then flung up onto the land and eventually distributed all over here by rivers and meltwater. Actually, we had to get special permission to come to this part of the Downs because it's privately owned, but it was well worth it. Originally, this was thought to be a fallen standing stone, but if you look at it closely, it's more interesting than that. See these grooves here? This is a Stone Age workbench. This is where craftsmen used to sharpen the hand axes in these grooves. It's like the autograph of a Neolithic craftsman. Really fantastic. I can see why our ancestors would have kept to the safety of the natural high road of the Ridgeway. The lowlands of ancient Britain were choked with dangerous forests, swamps and flooding rivers. So early hunters and travellers would have kept to the Ridgeway for their protection. 2,000 years after the building of Avebury got underway, giant hill forts like this one began to appear every 5 or 6 miles along the Ridgeway. From then on, it protected the Celts from the Romans from the Saxons, then the Saxons themselves from the marauding Vikings. The first hill fort I reach is Barbury, built and defended by the Celts, and where engineer Rob Herford has evidence that the Celts weren't just walking the Ridgeway, they were riding it in style. These are really interesting. They're Iron Age fittings from a chariot, and stuff just like that was found around here, and if remade, you can see that they look like that. But how do we know that these chariots are Celtic and not Roman, say?
Well, some tribes actually had a habit of burying whole chariots with the owner. All sorts of different places had different chariots of different kinds, but the ones that the Celts had of this pattern are quite comfortable to drive in. You can sit down and drive quite considerable distances on that. From one hill fort to the next, you can communicate with your opposite number in another tribe, and in doing that, you want the showiest chariot that you can make. So you cover it in bits of big bling to show off how well-to-do you are.
Absolutely. I think this is really significant because for most people, the Celts prior to the Romans getting here are just a load of old dunderheads who you take 2 steps forward, they'd fall over. But if they were producing really sophisticated things like this, and you've got this incredibly long route, and we know how people were getting from A to B in Celtic times. It's a completely different kind of civilization, isn't it? I must have a look at the horses. Jason, what are the horses called?
This is Kaiju and this is Fawn. They're both brothers and they're Dartmoor Hill ponies, so they are a native breed.
Do we reckon these are the kinds of horses that would have been used in the Iron Age?
I think so. Some people think of them as quite small, but this seems to fit very well. And when you're sitting in the chariot, you can actually see over the ponies. And if they were significantly bigger, you just spend hundreds of miles looking at horses' bums. And this, I think, works really, really well.
Are we going to let them pull this one along now?
Getting brave.
Oh, please do.
Really?
Yes,
Thank
slide
you.
in
Really?
through the back.
Right.
If you sit on the front
Yeah.
and stride, you'll get a slightly different view.
Oh, I see what you mean. You can see over them.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
On we go, boys. Come on.
Yep. Here I am, Mr. Celt. Oh, hang on a minute. There's a young Celt here. Do you want to ride in my cart?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Here we go. I should have done the whole Ridgeway in this. I'm beginning to form a picture now of a thriving highway crossing ancient Britain. But there was a time when the Ridgeway was all but lost, until it was rediscovered by one man who knew both the lay of the land and the secret history beneath. Each step along the Ridgeway is transporting me to a different time. And my next steps are taking me to Victorian England, in search of a writer who saved the Ridgeway from oblivion. Richard Jefferies, now regarded as one of Britain's greatest nature writers,
began in the 1870s to connect the discoveries he was making on his country walks. Jefferies realised that this overgrown track across the downs wasn't a farm lane or a modern road, but something much more significant.
This is his book, Wildlife in a Southern County. And in it, he says,
the origin of the track goes back into the dimmest antiquity. There's evidence that it was a military road when the fierce Dane carried fire and slaughter inland. The eagles of old Rome perhaps were born along it, and yet earlier chariots of the Britons may have used it. Traces of all have been found, so that for 15 centuries this track of the primitive peoples has maintained its existence through the strange changes of the times.
it is, of course, what we now call the Ridgeway.
Jefferies was born in Cote in Wiltshire, where the Ridgeway continues northeast along the North Wessex Downs. The country upbringing he would have recognised is all but gone. The house he was born in is now swamped by this busy junction on the outskirts of Swindon.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello.
It's crazy, isn't it, the difference between the mayhem outside and this little idyll.
Yes.
But I suppose in a way that's what Jefferies was writing about, the contradiction between the industrial society that he was living in and the rural agricultural society that had gone before. He discovered the Ridgeway for ordinary people, didn't he?
He did. He spent so many years here exploring the local landscape that he actually mapped out the local area with the downs, and it became to mean to him something more than just simply a path. It was more for him a channel into the past, if you like. And when he walked it, he would imagine the different cultures and the different ages of the past and the people who would have walked it before him.
In a way, he's a very modern writer, isn't he? Because if you or I or anybody were walking the Ridgeway today, it would generate in us certain emotions, which we'd be quite happy to articulate. But he was virtually the first person to talk about that kind of stuff, wasn't he?
Yes, people find a form of spiritual guidance in his works and comfort. And for those of us who enjoy wandering natural, ancient landscapes, his words really ring true for us when we're up there on the Ridgeway experiencing all the nature. His words come to mind, and I think he manages to keep experiences alive in people's minds.
For Richard Jefferies, the Ridgeway and the ancient sites along it were more than just history. They were a place of self-revelation. I restrained my soul till I reached and put my foot on the grass at the beginning of the green hill itself. Moving up the sweet short turf, at every step my heart seemed to obtain a wider horizon of feeling. With every inhalation of rich pure air, a deeper desire. The very light of the sun was whiter and more brilliant here. By the time I'd reached the summit, I'd entirely forgotten the petty circumstances and the annoyances of existence. I felt myself. It's so passionate, isn't it? So exhilarating, so excited.
He's a beautiful writer, isn't he?
As the Ridgeway climbs high to the east, I leave Swindon far behind. Looking at it through Jefferies' eyes, I've got a new appreciation for this atmospheric landscape. I love how the track seems to inspire storytelling and folklore, a way to make sense of the strange and ancient things we encounter along the way. Wayland Smithy. Encircled in a rustling ring of beech trees is a place steeped in its own myths and legends. This is one of the oldest man-made structures in the world. A Neolithic burial chamber built before the pyramids of Egypt. And when you see it, it makes sense that one frequent visitor to this site was the Oxford Professor of Anglo-Saxon Literature, J.R.R. Tolkien.
This is it. It's quite a strange-looking monument, isn't it? You've got these 1, 2 standing stones, then you've got this gully here, 2 more standing stones. Wayland was the blacksmith for the Saxon gods, and the story around here is, careful, don't break my legs, that if you put a groat, I've got 2.5p here, maybe that's something like a groat, into one of these holes, and you've got a horse without any horseshoes on, then you go away, and the next morning when you come back, it's shod. This is Andy Foley, who's the National Trust bloke for here, who let me in. Andy, I don't know very much about this kind of place, but to me, looking at this, it doesn't actually look Saxon, it looks older than that. Is that fair?
Yes, that's very, very true, Tony. It's actually a Neolithic burial chamber.
So, like, about how old would you say?
Neolithic refers to about 2,500 BC, so 5,000 years in all.
So what do you reckon the story of this place was in the New Stone Age?
Well, it's obviously an impressive site. There's a lot of effort gone into the construction. This stone here alone weighs 7 tons, so that would have to be brought up from the Vale or from distance.
So this is a big, powerful, potent place, and then thousands, literally thousands of years later, the Saxons come along, and they, adopt it as their own place, do you think?
That's right, yes, because obviously no written records, they won't be able to understand or be aware of the Neolithic period, so this place requires a reason or a purpose. I think the Wayland Smithy story is when this originated.
Yeah, we kind of forget, don't we, that someone like the Saxons would have had no idea who these people were. It's just weird stuff.
Exactly, yes.
It's still being used, I see.
What have we got in there today?
Well, it's just, I don't know, it just looks like someone's had a bit of a campfire, but it looks as though there've been quite a few of them over the years.
Yeah, that's the usual sort of offerings we get, so wildflowers wrapped into posies and what have you.
Did you say offerings?
Yes.
So it's not just a bunch of hippies cooking vegetarian sausages?
No.
It's quite eerie, actually. You can see lots of mysterious little shapes in here. Look. Andy, there's a painted jaw. Is that a horse?
Yes, horse's jawbone, yes.
It's lovely, isn't it? Nice piece of work, there. And... hello! It's like a big corn dolly, isn't it?
Or a wicker man, yes.
A wicker man? Oh, yeah, well, that might be slightly more sinister if it's a wicker man. A wicker man with tasty shades on. You said there was some stuff in the trees?
Yeah, we get ribbons and what have you left in these trees.
Oh, yeah, I can see ribbons here and here. Some there as well. There's that, and there's loads.
There's something quite haunting about this place. These coloured ribbons are wishes blowing in the wind, left by today's travellers.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, Tony.
Bye. A sacred site.
It's like the present is reaching into the long-lost past, with modern pagans reclaiming Wayland Smithy and the spirit of the Ridgeway for themselves. I'm walking along the high reaches of the ancient Ridgeway in Oxfordshire, bringing me close to one of England's most mythical landscapes. Guarding the way ahead is Dragon's Hill. According to legend, this is where St. George slew the dragon. And as the beast's blood spilled over the hilltop, it left forever a white patch where no grass can grow. But I'm heading further down the valley, to the delightful thatched village of Uffington. Thomas Hughes, author of Tom Brown's School Days, was born in the village here in 1822, where his grandfather was the local vicar. Hughes spent a carefree childhood rambling this path.
So he came down the Ridgeway in this direction, just like I'm doing now, and he came across a green vale, and I thought I'd lost my book for a moment, and ahead of him there was this massive chalk-carved horse, and he said about it, "The king carved out on the northern side of the chalk hill the great Saxon white horse, which gives its name to the vale over which it has looked these 1,000 years or more." Let's have a look at it. There's the vale.
But Thomas Hughes, like many before him, got it wrong. They thought the colossal white horse and Uffington Castle, perched on the hill above, were built to celebrate King Alfred the Great and his victory over the Vikings in the 9th century AD. It's true that Alfred the Great wasn't born far away, and he did defeat the Vikings on these very downs. But was any of that connected to the white horse? I need to find someone who can help me untangle fact from fiction.
What is it that we've got here?
Well, we're standing on Uffington Castle Hill Fort, and it's one of our best known hill forts in this part of the world.
Any idea what kind of date this hill fort would be?
This sort of hill fort's usually around about the 7th century BC, so it's early Iron Age.
So given the dates you've just been telling me, the idea that it was built by Alfred the Great to defend the area from the Vikings doesn't really work, does it?
No. But British folklore is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And often, you know, you end up with these names like Castle, and it's harking back to this sort of mythical age, trying to explain origins. It's kind of what we do best.
Going to be a bit contentious. Why did you call it a fort? Is it really a fort? Were there lots of soldiers marching around here?
Yeah, I keep doing that. There was a while where I stopped calling them forts and started calling them hilltop enclosures, which is really what they are.
It's not nearly as sexy sounding, though,
It's
is
not, is it? I like hill forts.
Yeah. What relationship do you think there is between this hill fort and the White Horse?
I think it's absolutely fundamental. And not only that, but the sighting of the horse, it's almost a story playing out in the landscape, and the hill fort sort of sits next to that story, going right back to the late Neolithic period. And it's the Iron Age which sort of sees that it flower, if you like, and the horse is absolutely crucial to that.
So these landmarks weren't created for the glory of Alfred the Great. They were built 2 millennia before he was born. And the oldest of all is the Great White Horse that has been marked in this hillside for almost 3,000 years. And without the local people and their tradition of scouring, it might have been lost forever. This pounding of the chalk keeps the horse as pristine and clean as the day it was created. By the Victorian era, Thomas Hughes was writing about the extravagant scouring festivals held here. There was the double line of booths and stalls, which I'd seen putting up the day before, making a long and broad street, and all decked out with nuts and apples and gingerbread, and all sorts of sucks and food, and children's toys and cheap ribbons, knives, braces, straps, and all manner of gaudy-looking articles. A female smoking marathon was held, where the prize was a gallon of gin awarded to the woman who smoked the most tobacco in an hour. Get your fags out, girls. The great beauty of this landscape is best appreciated from the sky. It's almost as if the ancient Britons carved the White Horse for some higher power to look down on from above. A few miles on from the Vale of the White Horse, the Ridgeway takes me near the town of Wantage, where the open chalk escarpments form natural highways and habitats for migrating birds of prey.
One of the things that really makes my heart sing about walking the Ridgeway is the number of birds of prey that you see. Some bloke said to me earlier that he'd once seen 17 kites all at the same time along here, and of course you get sparrowhawks and buzzards and kestrels. I think it's something about the thermals. They generate the means by which these birds can be supported whichever way they fly. With this close-cropped grass, they can see all the little rodents and small mammals. They are so staggeringly beautiful. But I think throughout most of history, they've been much more than just some aesthetic little jewel in the sky. They've been a means for you to get food.
Birds of prey have long drifted and hovered over this landscape and have been used here for hunting since the Middle Ages. One man who knows all about this sport of kings is local falconer David Hughes.
So what I'm going to do when I get here, so we've let him settle, take the hood off.
He knows it's going to be a bit of fun now.
That's what an ear was invented for. Then I'm going to stick him on the perch, then we'll just gradually walk back, and he's going to have a look around to see what's happening.
Yeah.
His eyes are on me, which is a bonus. Right, so there's the lure. So he's spotted me with a lure now. That's it. He's seen the meat. Look, he's bobbing.
Yeah.
He's working wind. He's getting everything sorted. Come on. Come. Good boy. Come on.
Yay! How important was falconry as far as people getting food on their plates?
Until shotguns came along, I think it was one of, other than the bow and arrow or a spear, it was one of those, for the nobility, it was a sport to catch food for the pot. And obviously, like I said, the goshawk, with it being the cook's bird, they were more likely to catch something than they were the peregrine.
So, depending on your status, you would have a different bird to hunt with?
Yeah.
I'm a flipping Knight of the Realm. What do I get?
Oh, right, you wouldn't have had a bird until the Crusades. When the knights went out to Jerusalem, they brought Saker falcons home.
Saker falcon?
Saker.
I haven't even heard of one of those.
They're actually bigger than a peregrine.
Yeah.
The second largest falcon, they're bigger than the peregrine. They're a ground hunting bird. Your squire would have had a lanner falcon, again, slightly smaller. And that's where we got the new birds coming into falconry.
I've actually got a couple of Saker falcons at home. You have to.
In the Middle Ages, I imagine you'd have seen every rank of society from peasants to princes using their birds of prey to hunt up and down the Ridgeway. Today, evidence of its rich history can still be found in our everyday language.
Give us a couple of other words associated with falconry.
Right. Hoodwinking, when the falcon here is wearing a hood.
So you fooled him, you've hoodwinked him.
I've conned him into thinking it's night, so I've switched him off.
Excuse me, we're talking.
Hector, come on.
The thing that strikes me about the bird is that even though I've never held a hunting bird before, it's really calm. How do you train them?
It's all down to pieces of meat, basically. You'd have the bird sitting on the bow perch for a hawk, for a goshawk, sat on a bow perch, and you'd offer him a piece of meat, and he'd jump to the glove for a piece of meat.
Yeah.
So again, you're getting further and further away, which brings in another term. So at a certain point, when you're jumping that bird from the perch to the glove, you're at the end of your tether. And it's not because I'm stressing out over anything, it's the fact that you're at the end of your tether, because that's as far as you've got in your training.
All the time we've been talking, Five has been so well behaved. Look at that. Isn't that the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen?
Sometimes I wish I could soar above the magnificent Ridgeway like a bird of prey. But then, just once in a while, this track offers up treasures beneath your feet that only the dedicated walker can find. The Ridgeway has now guided me 3/4 of the way along my journey to the Thames. Even today, this ancient track is offering up remarkable treasures for the travellers who walk its chalky path. In 2009, metal detectorist Malcolm Langford rediscovered a unique piece of Britain's lost history.
This is Annie Bayard, who works for the PAS, which stands for...
Portable Antiquities Scheme.
Of course, a fantastic organisation. If you find anything which looks old and you think might be interesting, then you can take it to Annie or one of her colleagues and they'll tell you what it is rather than it being up on your fireplace in ignorance for years and years. And that is exactly what happened with Malcolm over here. Malcolm, it was about 7 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I was metal detecting in the field just alongside the Ridgeway. I got an extremely good signal on my metal detector, so I knew it was something nice.
Yeah.
And I dug that up.
It is quite beautiful, isn't it?
It's a silver denarius.
It's a denarius.
Yeah. But I didn't realise the great age of it because they didn't change some of the issues on the coins, the patterns and the pictures. They didn't change them for a long time. And I knew it was a Republican denarius, but I didn't know how old.
So Republican means that it was before Julius Caesar.
Yes.
Annie, he brought it to you. What was your reaction when you saw that?
I was amazed when I saw it. I knew immediately that it was old, very old as well, Republican. And I thought, wow, you don't see them in this sort of condition. It looks almost brand new. You know, it's absolutely amazing.
Have we any idea more precisely how old it is now?
We think it's about 207 BC.
That's mad. The Romans didn't get here till 40-odd AD.
Exactly. So this is a good 250 years before the Claudian invasion. But it probably didn't come here that early. It probably came here in the 1st century BC.
Malcolm had discovered the UK's oldest single Roman coin. It's really incredible to hold something like this in your hand and wonder how it got here.
Who do you think it was who brought this coin here, Malcolm? Where do you think it came from?
Well, I'd like to think that a Celtic warrior who'd fought as a mercenary in the Mediterranean area for the Romans, and it's in the history books that many Celts did that. And I'd like to think that he saw them using these discs like these things, these coins, and he brought one back to show his chief of his tribe that they were using these things instead of swapping goats for sheep and the like, you know.
I just heard slightly hysterical laughter there.
Yeah, it could well be. It could also be coming here through trade as well. We don't know. As Malcolm is correct in saying, the Second Punic Wars was happening at the time that these were being issued. Maybe it was a mercenary. We just don't know.
We won't fall out over it. Never.
Yeah.
But it does imply, doesn't it, that there was a much stronger relationship between
definitely
I was going to say the mainland, you know what I mean, France and us, than might have been expected at that time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially in the 1st century BC, when Roman coinage started coming in more earnestly, we see that there is trade. You know, Britain wasn't this isolated little island before the Claudian invasion, and this coin just goes to show that.
Its value for me is that it sort of implies that the Brits weren't dozy-headed, woad-painted idiots until the Romans came. They were sophisticated traders.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
They knew what money was all about.
They did.
Pieces of evidence like this long-lost Roman coin are driving home for me that the Ridgeway really was an international trade route with links to the continent, thousands of years before our tricky relationship with Europe today. As the Ridgeway starts to descend into the Goring Gap, the open remote countryside gives way to woodlands and small villages. The track leads me towards Streatley and Goring, two villages that straddle England's most famous river. This is where the Ridgeway meets the Thames. Two of Britain's most ancient strategic trade routes. Romans, Saxons and Vikings all used the Ridgeway to connect with this great waterway. Here the Ridgeway was at its most vulnerable. Far from the safety of the high chalk ridge, the lowlands of the river valley needed defending from plundering invaders.
What I find so extraordinary is that they were building these great chunky defence systems on the Ridgeway thousands of years ago, and they were still doing it in the 20th century. And well, we're not actually going to go on this boat, but Steve, we're going to borrow your boat, aren't we? Thank you, mate. To see how the people of Goring prevented us from being overwhelmed by a German invasion. Off you go, mate.
But these Germans weren't Saxon invaders coming to conquer the ancient Isles of Britain. They were Nazis.
That's it, isn't it? That's what we've come to see. We're pulling somewhere?
Pulling in this way, yeah?
Yeah, please. Hey, look at this. It is like a prehistoric megalith, isn't it? Except it's made of concrete. Gonna need the torch for this.
This is a World War II pillbox. OK, it's not ancient exactly, but it is recently uncovered, one of the best surviving examples left in Britain.
Steve, how come this place is in such good nick?
Well, I think it's because it's on private land.
What precisely was its function?
Well, as you can see, if you look out of the embrasure, you can see the bridges across the river between Streatley and Goring.
Yeah.
And we know that there were some other pillboxes on the other side. It's about defending the river at this key point.
It is ironic, isn't it, that they're still defending the ridge thousands of years after the original people put up their defences.
Absolutely, and as you know, coming off the Ridgeway here, you've got King Alfred defending against the Danes.
Yeah.
And this end, we've got the descendants of King Alfred getting ready to defend against the Germans.
What do people do with them now? They're so solid, aren't they?
Well, what can you do with something that's got 3 feet walls, designed to stop pretty heavy fire? Not a lot.
It's a coffee shop. You can imagine archaeologists coming along in about 500 years' time having no idea what it is. Oh, it's going to be ritual.
No, I was going to say it's religious significance, without a doubt. It's
or for protecting the corn in winter.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it has no function at all other than a whole society got together in order to
Well,
build
that's exactly what they did, yeah. So the whole society did get together in 1940, and it was, in that sense, a pretty important thing to do.
I like to think that in hundreds of years' time, our monuments and behaviours will be wildly guessed at by armchair archaeologists and fireside historians just like me, and that they too will get some joy out of the pursuit of the mystery.
I've walked bits of the Ridgeway several times previously, and I've always found it beautiful and really quite inspiring, but I've never had such consistently good weather. Mind you, looking at what's over there, I think I'll be off home now.
For more than 5,000 years, drovers, traders and invaders have used this track and reused the sites along the way, creating their own myths and legends to make sense of the landscape. I've been following the Ridgeway. Picking up the track near the megaliths of Avebury, I've been guided along its route by Celtic chariots, white horses and Alfred the Great. But the enduring legacy of the Ridgeway goes beyond its position as a natural line of defence. Each generation has added to the mythology and legend of this ancient track, leaving clues in the landscape that we can still find today.